If you're a new parent, back pain or sciatica can be the last thing you want. With all this involved in the first few months to years as your baby turns into a toddler, you've got more than enough on your plate. I know we have. And as our daughter turned 18 months very recently, we thought it a good time to share some of the strategies and tips to help you guys prevent getting back pain or sciatica during this time. If you're new here, welcome. I'm Michael Fatika, the lead osteopath and spine specialist here at Back in Shape, and we help people around the UK and all over the world fix their back pain and get back in shape for the long term. So whether you're a new parent or grandparent, this video is going to help you avoid back pain. And towards the end of the video, if you are unlucky enough to be suffering with some back pain or sciatica, we're going to give you some steps that you can take immediately to reduce that, calm it down, so you can get back to the things that matter. Obviously, there are so many great things about having a baby, but the toll it can take on your lower back is profound and can't be overstated. And for the sake of today's video, we're not going to include pregnancy and any complications from childbirth, and we're going to kind of start at that point where the baby is here. So it's going to be helpful for all of you, mothers, fathers, grandparents, etc., so that it can really help bring to your attention some of these little activities that you're going to be doing that can potentially challenge your back in various ways, so we can approach them in a little bit more of a smarter way. Unfortunately, although we can make lots of ergonomic assessments and adjustments to our workstation, our driving position, etc., when it comes to playing with the baby, changing the nappy, and all these other things, most of that is going to take place on the floor. We're going to be playing with them on the floor. We're going to be doing tummy time on the floor. We're going to be maybe supporting them while they're sitting and crawling on the floor. They are at shin height. And for many of us, especially over the age of 30, so your dads and grandparents in particular, we're not going to have the flexibility to effectively get down there. So this can pose a risk. And as a result, it can be a source of flare-ups and aggravation, especially if you're dealing with or managing some sort of back problem. The reality is there's not really any good way to do this other than try your best to get down onto the ground in a sensible manner, trying to keep your spine neutral, trying to bend at the hips and the knees and the ankles, rather than craning over like a fishing rod to play with them on the floor. When it comes to traveling with your baby or with your toddler, in spite of investing in those rotating car seats where you can put them in and then just spin them around rather than having to twist, you're still going to be bending, probably not in the best way to get them in the car. Now, if you're lucky enough to have a 4x4 or a high car, this is going to make things a little bit easier for you. But the reality is, if you've parked up next to the curb, you're going to be 5-6 inches higher. You're going to have to crane yourself over. Otherwise, you're going to bang your head. And trying your best when you're approaching the car seat, hopefully your little one is being a little bit more cooperative with you. But even if they're not, or even if they are, it can still be a challenge. You're going to have to duck a little bit. You're going to have to round your lower back. And if you're dealing with a flare, trying to get the other parent to help you out as best you can so that they can put them in the car seat is going to make your life much, much easier. And then we've got time in the car. Sometimes you're just going to have to twist around in that car seat to reach back, give them something, give them a bit of support, whatever it may be. And understanding that this, again, is a unique opportunity for us to challenge our back in ways that aren't ideal, and that there's no real ideal way to go around it is going to be important. Because sometimes we just have to make the best of a bad job. So do your best, but know that you can't do it perfectly in a way that's ideal for your lower back. Whenever your baby starts learning to crawl and walk, things take a whole new dimension, especially as they're starting out with these various skills. I know with Evelina, we're finding ourselves constantly down on the floor, trying to make sure she's not going to fall over, face plant, topple backwards, and everything in between. The good thing is that this is a short period. You are going to have to spend that couple of weeks, maybe a month, at each of those transitions, so to crawling and then to standing and walking, being a little bit extra attentive. And again, there's no good way about this. You're not going to just watch and let them face plant instead of bending over to pick them up. So you're going to support your little one. I know with Evelina, we were jumping left, jumping right, trying to keep up with her, preventing her from falling backwards, all these other sorts of things. Thankfully, these little ones, they learn really fast, so you won't be in a position where you're like this for too long. But know that when they are going through that transition, you're going to have to be there. And there's no easy way to do it because they're unpredictable. They don't know which way they're going. So what hope do you have? You just have to, again, do your best and know that just like the car situation, when they're learning to crawl and when they're learning to walk, you're going to have to put yourself at risk a little bit more. I think the big thing that gets people when it comes to lower back pain and flare-ups and sciatica is that it really upsets you if things are happening for quote unquote no reason. But hopefully pointing some of these things out so far is making you think, well, do you know what? Like if I had to stop my little one, if I had to stop Evelina toppling backwards and I hurt my back, who cares? It's better my back than her head. And so just being okay with that is going to be much better for you up here if you are dealing with a little bit of back pain as a new parent or a new grandparent. And what we'll get to a little bit later on is some of the strategies you can do to avoid these things and deal with these things and manage these things, but understand that there is a logical reason why you're maybe flaring yourself up because of the tasks that we have to do as we're raising these little ones. So it's always frustrating when we're supporting someone who maybe is a new grandparent, they're a new parent, and they say, well, I wasn't really doing anything, but my back pain's flared up, because that means we're not really thinking about what we're actually doing. And as soon as we start to identify the things, like I've just mentioned, that we are doing that are involved in looking after, an under 2-year-old child, we start to realize, okay, actually, there is a good reason why I'm not feeling as good. And that's really important, because understanding a why we have back pain can really at least set your mind at ease a little bit, rather than going, well, I have no idea why it happened. It keeps happening to me. There's nothing I can do. There are things that we can potentially do, and there are reasons for that. And that, for many people, actually identifying, oh yeah, that makes sense why my back pain flared up, immediately has a calming effect on the feelings of helplessness that we can sometimes have when we have low back pain. And some of these next tips are things that you can do. If you know you're going to be looking after that little one over the weekend, over the course of the weekend, or maybe you're a dad, you've got a day off, you're going to be looking after that little one as they're learning to walk or crawl, to be there for those really important milestones, know that it might actually flare your back up. That some of these tips are going to be useful in helping you manage any aggravation, and even managing the simple fact that you have been doing something that's not as good for your lower back. And that way you can manage and reduce the risk of those sorts of activities bothering your lower back. So with these next activities, try and perform them in the order that we mentioned them, because they kind of flow really nicely one into the other and will reinforce the effectiveness of the previous one as you go through this routine. So the very first one we're going to be doing is, and we do this after we've had a bit of time playing with the child or doing whatever you want to do, and that is mobilizing your hips. So fundamentally, the better mobility that you have in your hips, the less your lower back has to be involved. So if you're up and down, if you're in and out of the car seat, if you're down on the ground playing with them, if you can use your hips to get down there, you're going to be using less of your lower back. You're going to be putting your lower back in a less compromising position, and that's going to be helpful. And the stretching that you can do can have a more or less instant effect. And we're talking about here stretching the hips. So that's the hamstring stretch. Simply, it can be done at home, anywhere around the house. We've got the hip flexor stretch, which is going to open up the front part of your hips. And then we've got the glute stretch, which can really open out the glute tightness that can sometimes develop and limit us as we go down towards the ground. And there's a full 10-minute hip mobility flow that's linked down in the description, where you can just hip play and just follow along. You don't need to worry about when do you do these, how do you do these, etc. You just follow that routine, and it's really going to help you. Maybe bookmark the video so you can watch it time and time again to make sure that you're doing it correctly. But that is instantly going to release some of the tension in your hips. It's going to make you move better and put less strain on your back. The next important step is going to be decompressing your lumbar spine. And this can be done easily with a towel and a bed, two things that you certainly have at home. And you can do these every single day. And what this means is you're going to either lie across the bed and gently stretch your lower back using your arms, like you're probably seeing on the video right now, or you can use the towel to lie over it for periods of 3 to 5 minutes to gently decompress the spine and support the natural backward bending curve of your lower back. Again, we want to make this video as helpful as possible for you new parents, so we can link to the specific video down there where you can follow along and get a bit more detailed guidance on the bed decompression stretch and the towel stretch and a couple of others, which are going to help you, give you an instant opportunity to decompress your lower back and take some of the pressure off. Because if you're bending down, picking them up, or let's just say you're putting them to sleep at night, you're craning yourself over that cot, because there's only one way you can do it, and it doesn't involve having a neutral spine. You can then go into the other bedroom and lie down across the bed and decompress your back right afterwards. It's going to really help decrease that repetitive strain that's going to be inevitable, particularly when you're doing things like putting them into the cot or changing nappies in various positions that you find yourself. The last one is really important, especially if you're having some flare-ups, because it can really instantly calm things down, and that is using contrast bathing to control any inflammation that's building up in your lower back. So if you find that you're a little bit uncomfortable in that lower back, it's getting a bit stiff, you're getting a bit of sciatica down the leg, using ice or preferably contrast bathing, where we go hot for 3 to 5 minutes, then cold for 3 to 5 minutes, repeating that over the course of around about 20 minutes, just one after the other, can really calm down any inflammation that's building up in and around that lower lumbar spine because of the strain that we've just mentioned. For example, putting your child into the cot, putting them in the car seat, playing with them on the floor. That's really going to be helpful. And we've got 2 resources for you. Number 1 is going to be down in the description, a step-by-step guide to doing contrast bathing to make sure you're putting it at the right place. For example, if you're getting sciatica down your leg, putting the hot and cold on your leg is not going to help. We have to put it over the correct section of your lumbar spine. The second one is a really cool device. It's the Recovery Therm Cube from Therabody. It's something that we use, we have around the house. You just strap it on and it does contrast bathing for you. If you're a busy parent, you're running around, you're preparing food, you're getting in, you're going to work, whatever it may be, you're doing your own working out, hopefully. Having this where you can just strap it on, it does the hot and cold for you, can really, really work well at calming down and managing any inflammation. And I would encourage you, if you've had a particularly busy day, maybe they're going through that period, like they're learning to walk, or they're learning to crawl, or they've just started sitting up and you're playing with them on the floor a lot, using this as a preemptive measure can actually be really helpful as well. Ultimately, if you're a new parent or grandparent, you want to be doing some element of strengthening work, some element of building up your body's ability to bear load. Because whether you're going to be carrying this one, ladies, if you're going to be breastfeeding, holding them up, or either parents or grandparents, bottle feeding, holding the baby, you're going to be bearing more load, and that load is growing pretty quickly. And so we want to make sure that we're doing some element of load-bearing resistance training to front run the increase in weight that your baby's going to go through as they grow, as they flourish, as they thrive. And so some of the resources that we link to below in the description include things like the hip hinge tutorial, how to do this vital movement so you can bend a little bit more effectively from the hips and not round your lower back. Learning to squat effectively with good ranges of motion. Again, it's another tutorial linked down there in the description, as well as if you're struggling particularly with lower back pain, we've got a link to the full Fixing Back Pain Masterclass down there too, so you can check that out if you need a little bit more help. But I would really encourage you to make a decision to start to strengthen up your body using some of those exercises and others that we talk about in the Back in Shape program to really help guard yourself against any particular back flare-ups. Because the simple fact of the matter is, being a new parent of an under 18-month-old or under two-year-old child is going to challenge your lower back. And if you can do a little bit of work, and it only takes maybe half an hour a day or half an hour, 3, 4, 5 times a week, you can really build up some strength in your lower back so that it can make the process of looking after the little one a little bit less painful, so you can really focus on the things that really matter, which is their development and all those milestones and all that fun stuff that you're going to be doing on a day in, day out basis. As I say frequently, the best time to start strengthening your back is before you have the back injury rather than afterwards. So I hope this video has been helpful for any of you new parents or grandparents watching this. If there's any other questions you've got, please do use that comment section below. We read and reply to all of those. And as we're going through it now ourselves, now is the best time to ask because it's fresh in our mind. We're dealing with it day in, day out. And hopefully we can give you some insights, some extra tips that are relevant to you specifically. So use that comment section down there and we'd be happy to read and reply to all of those. If you have made it this far through the video, thanks so much for watching. If you know someone else who's a new parent and maybe they've been holding their back, maybe they've been struggling a little bit, consider sharing this video with them and maybe some of those other resources that we've linked down in the description. As always, thanks for joining us on this episode of the podcast and we'll see you in the next video.